we'll probably start. That's okay. If more people want to come, they're welcome. My name again is Sarah Gordon. It's nice to see everyone. I know I met many of you last week. So I teach at Ma'ayanot. I'm the director of student activities, and I teach Gemara and Israel advocacy. And happy Hanukkah. It's very nice to see everyone today. And we'll have a chance to continue learning some Tanakh together. So. Today our topic continues to be rebels, warriors, and kings, examining controversial leaders in Tanakh. So today in episode 2, we're going to talk a little bit about Elisha and the Isha HaShunamit. So we're going to move to Sefer Malachim, and we'll have a chance to discuss that a little bit together. So one thing, when we think about the story of Elisha and the Isha HaShunamit, we'll have a chance to read through it together, to ask different questions. I think it's a very fascinating story. I think it's a very rich, very detailed narrative, and it has a lot of lessons I think we're able to pull out of the text and discuss together, from how leaders relate to their communities, from the dangers that sometimes come with amassing power, and how we balance sometimes the idea of charismatic leaders and connecting to our communities, and how exactly to make sure that when we amass power or influence, we also kind of don't lose ourselves in the process. That's something we'll have a chance to discuss today a little bit. Hi, welcome. And we'll have a chance to talk through and a chance to look at. And as we go through this parak, I think what we'll see, we're going to try to look at it using a little bit of different techniques. We'll see kind of, I think, in many different narratives or many regular stories also, we sometimes see there are different stages that happen. You have the exposition of the story, you have the conflict, you have the journey that the character goes on, and then you finally come to a resolution. So we're going to see if we can see that applied a little bit here to our story of Elisha and the Isha HaShunamit. I think what's fascinating here, and what we should think about as a group as we look through this, is who is the main character and what is the lesson that they are supposed to learn. Because I think as we'll see here, there will be different opinions or different options here as to who exactly is this main character and what exactly are they supposed to be learning. What's their error, what's their mistake, what are they supposed to be learning from the journey that they're on. And we'll see there's a few different options, and that's what we're going to have a chance to kind of discuss a little bit together today. So as we read through, we should keep in the back of our minds, and we'll try to share some opinions as we go through who we think the main character might be, and again, what journey they are on. Again, most of these ideas are not my own. I gave you some more optional reading at the end if you want to kind of look at some different articles about this. So we'll talk a little about Rav Moshe Lifensky, Rav Mordechai Sabato, Rabbi Alex Israel, and Rav Elchanan Salmon are some of the main people who talk about this narrative. We'll have a chance to break this down. And this parak also is actually the center of a controversy in a Tanakh periodical called Megadim, which is published by Yeshivat Har Etzion. And there were a few kind of, we'll talk about some of the different Bible scholars, some of the different teachers that were discussing this narrative, and they basically got into kind of back and forth over this topic that we said before, over who's the main character and what are they supposed to be learning, and it raised a little bit of controversy, which is always a good thing, very exciting. We'll see kind of how back and forth what their thoughts were and what we think and which opinions we find compelling as well. So that's basically the plan for today, and we'll see kind of what lessons we're able to pull out of the text. Okay, so I think what we'll do is we'll start kind of like last time. We'll just read through the text. We'll pause every so often just to refamiliarize ourselves with the story. There's both Hebrew and English. I'll read in Hebrew and translate, but you can definitely follow along whichever one you're most comfortable in. And then as we go through, we'll have a chance to kind of see what exactly we think the different lessons are as we go through it. Okay, so if we turn page, we have Melachim Bet Parak Daled, and we're telling her the story of Elisha. One thing just to know about Elisha as we go through, Elisha is very famous for always kind of bringing miracles. Elisha is kind of like the miracle man. Wherever he goes, he sees a problem. His immediate way to kind of to solve it is he is even more than Eliyahu. He always goes and is able to do miracles. Whether it's the oil that doesn't stop, sounds very very similar to the holiday that we're currently in, right? Like the oil doesn't stop for people who are hungry. If he needs to get over a river or anything like that, he's able to split it. Anywhere he goes, he's really able to do different miracles, and we'll see kind of how this has a central role in our story as well. Okay, so we're told in Pasuk Chaf, we'll start with that. Vayhi hayom vayavor Elisha el Shunam, v'sham isha gedola v'techazek bo le'achol lechem, vayhi midei avro yusar sham le'achol lechem. So Elisha would always kind of travel around, and there was a certain woman, the Shunamite woman, who would always kind of, she did a lot of hakmasat orchim, she would always invite him in, and always kind of take care of his needs whenever he was in that area. But she decides to go a little bit further than that. In Pasuk Tet, but Tomer Elisha hinena yadati ki isha Elokim kadoshu over Elinu tamid. She tells her husband, we always have this isha Elokim who's always stopping by. Nasena aliyat kir tana v'nasim lo sham mitah v'shulchan v'kiseh menorah v'yabah v'o Elinu yesur shama. So what's she saying? Instead of just offering a meal, what should we do? Should make it right. Let's make it like a more permanent thing. We're gonna give him a guest room, right? We're invite him in. Let's take our Haknas Adarchim to kind of a higher level here. Okay, so the text continues on, and they do that.
Just as kind of a side issue, but I always enjoy that particular pasuk because it gives you an idea of what furnishings of a home, of a room, might have been in those times, what the basic items were.
Yeah, no, fascinating. Right, thank you for sharing. Right, we see exactly seeing the text, exactly what was necessary, what they needed, what they had. So now, as we know, Elisha has this place when in Isha Shunamit, right? She's been taking very good care of him. And one day he's traveling there, and Gehazi is his attendant, who's with him as well. He decides that he wants to have a conversation with Isha Shunamit. So we'll skip down to Pasuk Yudbet. So he calls her, and she comes and stands before him. Pasuk Yud Gimel. Vayomer lo emor na eleha hine harata elinu et kol harada hazot mela sod la hayeshu leber lach el hamelach goel sar tzava v'tamar b'toch ami anochi yoshevet. So he calls her over, and basically he's, Elisha is very grateful for everything that she's done for him, and says, I know that you've taken such good care of us. Is there anything that I can do for you? Like, I know you've gone to all this trouble. You set up a room for me. What can I do? Can I speak to the king, to the general? Or Elisha has a lot of political connections. Like, what can I do to help you out? And what's her response? She says, I don't need anything. But I live amongst my people. I'm, a humble woman. I don't really need anything. I don't need your help, but thank you, right? And that's kind of the response that she does. However, Elisha is undeterred, right? He wants to still help her out. In Pasuk Tet Zayin, a little bit earlier, we'll see on Pasuk Yudalet. Vayomer umela sodla. So Elisha wants to know, really, is there anything else we can do for her? Vayomer Gehazi aval bein enla be'isha zaken. Gehazi lets Elisha know that she's actually an akara, right? She doesn't have, specifically saying akara, but here, right, she doesn't have children, and her husband is elderly. Seeing, again, maybe you could promise her a child, right? Kind of stating this fact over here. Even though, as we'll see later on, that she herself does not volunteer this information. This information is volunteered by Gehazi. So Pasuk Tetvav, Vayomer Krala, call her back. Vayikrala v'tamod b'petach. And she stands at Petach, right in the entrance of the room. Vayomer l'moed hazeh ka'it chaya at choveket ben v'tomer ala adoni isha elokim al techazeh b'shivchata. So two things happening here in Pasuk Tetzayin. The first thing, he promises her that this time next year you will have a son. What does that remind us of? Right? It reminds us of Sarah, right? So already kind of tying into like a type scene almost of like an akara. We'll come back to that, right? Like this time next year you'll have a son. But interestingly, what's her response?
Don't play with me. Don't disappoint me. Don't build up my hopes.
Don't build up my emotions. Don't disappoint me with this, right? Right. The English translation here says "do not fail." Could also be "don't deceive," right? Don't trick me. Don't play with my emotions. Right. Already we see kind of like she's not. This isn't an overjoyed reaction. This isn't something also that she had volunteered, right? It wasn't something that she'd asked for. And actually, like if you're going to promise this, you have to be serious, right? You can't be playing with my emotions here. Okay, great. Time goes on. Pasuk Yudzayin. And she has a child that time next year, right? Just as Elisha had promised. Life goes on. And the son grows up and he goes out to work in the fields. And so we know now, we had our exposition. The conflict, I would say, is kind of that she's promised a child, or kind of like what exactly ends up happening with the child now. And then we'll see kind of her journey. So what happens? Pasuk Yutet, Vayomer el Aviv, Roshi, Vayomer el Hanar, Sauru el Imo. Right, the child falls ill. In Pasuk Chaf, he's brought into his mother. Vayiseu vayiveru el Imo, vayeshev el berkea ad hatzarayim vayimot, and he dies. Okay, or at least unclear exactly what happens. We'll see later on. But something, he falls in the coma. It seems that he's dead. Pasuk Chav. So what does she do next? Interesting. What is her reaction to her child dying? Right, she doesn't call Hatzalah. She takes the child, and what does she do? She takes him to Elisha's room. Vatikra el Isha, and she doesn't really tell her husband exactly what's going on, but instead she says, "Vatomer shochana li echad min hanarim rechata atonot, Barutza ad Ish Elokim Ashuv. I have to go talk to the Isha Elokim. So I'm going to need one of the donkeys, get the car, I got to go. Right, and she doesn't tell him kind of what's going on. Interesting enough, Pasuk Chaf Gimel, the husband's a little bit confused. He says, Vayomer Madua at holechet elav hayom lo chodesh v'lo Shabbat v'tomer shalom. Like, why are you going? Right, it's not Rosh Chodesh on a Chag. Showing that usually, right, she was someone who always kind of went to visit the Navi, always went, right, to maybe learn from him, to learn Torah from him. But her response here is her husband's like, asking clarification questions. She's like, Shalom, no, there's no time, gotta go, right? She's very kind of does not tell him what's going on. So it's on the page over. And interesting, we see here with the haste that she's going to try to find Elisha, right? Pasuk Chavdalad, right? To Chavosha Aton v'tomer el na'ara nahag belech al ta'atzer li l'rkov ki ima marti lach. Let's go as fast as you can. Don't stop for anything. And she goes basically, and Pasuk Chavez, basically she sees Gehazi. Gehazi basically, that she continues on, and Gehazi sees that she is coming. That Elisha says she's coming. He tells Gehazi to go and see what exactly is going on. So we'll skip down a little bit. Pasuk Chavav, Elisha's instructions to Gehazi are to go and tell her, Atar rutzna likrata ve'omer la, hashalom lach, hashalom leisha, hashalom leyad, v'tomer shalom. So Gehazi meets her and says, everything's fine, right? Everything's okay, peace, whatever, is everyone okay? And she says it's fine. So interesting enough, already we'll see also that she has no interest, right, in talking to Gehazi. She only wants to talk to who? Straight to the source, straight to Elisha. She's not telling her husband what's going on. She's not telling Gehazi. Pasuk Chavzayin. V'tavo el Isha Elokim el hahar v'techazek b'raglav. V'yigash Gehazi lahadfa. V'yomer Isha Elokim harfela ki nafsha marala v'Hashem hilim mimeni v'lo higidli. She falls on her knees, right, and Gehazi what are you doing? Don't touch the Navi. He's about to push her off. And Elisha says, no. I see she's really in distress, and God has hidden from me what has happened. So interesting already, right? That something's being hidden from Elisha here, the man of miracles. Okay. Pasuk Chavchet, Vatomer Shalti ben me'et Adoni, Halo Amarti lo tashleoti, right? And she yells at Elisha here. You didn't did I ask for this? Right? I never asked for a son. This wasn't my request, right? And didn't I tell you? Right? Don't mislead me. How could this happen? Right? So again, we see kind of her anger, her distress over here. She didn't ask for this, and she made Elisha. She told Elisha, if you're going to do this, you have to be serious about it. You can't play with my emotions. And we see kind of how upset she is. So what is Elisha's response going to be? And here we're going to see a few different responses, and I made a chart that we'll look at a little bit later that shows it. The first thing he basically says is he tells Gehazi to go take his staff and to bring it to where the child is. So Pasuk Chatet. Right, take my staff, don't talk to anyone else, go straight there. Put my staff on the face of the child, of the nar. She's like, I'm not leaving you, we're gonna go deal with this together. Pasuk Lamed Aleph. So Gehazi goes first. But there's no sound, right? There's nothing that happens when he puts a staff on the face of a child. So option A, or the first kind of plan, put the staff on the nar, fails. There's no change in his status. Pasuk Lamed Bet. So now we have plan B. Elisha goes himself. So what is plan B? What does he do? He turns to God, right? And he turns to tefillah. What's interesting here is he doesn't just turn to tefillah, he's in this room alone with the nar, right? He makes sure it's kind of a very private moment between him and the nar. Pasuk Lamed Daled, Vayal v'yishka b'hal yelad, v'yishem piv al piv, v'einav al einav, v'kapav al kapav, v'yigar alav, v'yecham b'sar ha'yelad. He does, again, before I should talk about this, right, it's a CPR, some sort of medical procedure or something, right? And he's able, after davening, he's able through this procedure to awaken or to warn the child, right? In Pasuk Lamed Hey, Vayishav v'yilech habayit echad, hine v'achat, hine v'yal v'yigar alav v'yizarer hanar ad sheva pamim, v'yifkach hanar et einav. So he sneezes 7 times and he wakes up. The child is back to life. Vayikra Gehazi v'yomer Kral Hashinamit Hazot Vayikra Vatavola Vayomer Se'i Binach. Right? And he says, take your son. It's all good. Pasuk Lamed Zayin, and she falls to her feet. Right? Tavov V'tzipol Raglav Shacheo Artzav V'Chishav Binah. She takes her son and she leaves, and they live happily ever after. Maybe. Okay, so that's our main kind of story we had a chance to go through. I want to bring us back to our original question, which was, who is the main character in the story? and what is the lesson that they are supposed to be learning? So we'll try to make this a little bit interactive. Any thoughts? Who is the main character of this story? We have a few characters going on in the story, and what is the lesson that you think they are supposed to be learning? Any thoughts as to this? Yes?
I think the main character is Alicia, and I think, well, I'm not sure about the lesson supposed to be learning, but I think the high point of the story, what it's all leading up to, is his resurrection of the child.
Okay, so kind of focusing more on Alicia, and the high point here being when he brings the child back to life. But that's going to be a pivotal moment. Great, thank you for sharing that. Other thoughts? Anyone want to agree or disagree? Who could be the main character here? What are the lessons they're supposed to be learning? Yes?
I think the Isha Shunamit is the main focus of the story.
Okay.
I'm not sure what the lesson is.
Okay, well, why do you think that she's the main focus?
She sort of has control of all the situation. She's the one who decides to make hospitable to Alicia when he comes, and she's the one who goes with her son and doesn't have anyone else do it. She's the one who's doing it, and she goes back. So
For sure, a lot of the story is told from her perspective. Pardon?
She's very proactive.
Right, very, very active also that we see. It's interesting also right at the beginning, she seems a little more passive, right, when, I don't need anything to happen, then all of a sudden she switched into full gear. So right, definitely also we see a lot coming from the Isha Shunamit's perspective. Response?
Yeah, I would agree with you if you take that story just by itself. But if you read more about Alicia's life and all the miracles that he performed.
yeah, but here in this story,
No, if you go
she's-
beyond that, I'm saying if
Right.
you consider the whole story of his life, not just this story separately. This story separately, I would agree. But if you put it all together, all the other miracles, all the other stories, the miracles that he did, then that I think is
Been
is
contextually
proof
in the,
of
you're almost saying like according to the Sefer, right, versus let's say in the Parak, where there's different voices.
yeah. If
here
you
we're
look at all
talking
the other
just about
stories
this
about
particular incident.
this particular incident, maybe, but if, as I say, if you put it all together with all the other incidents,
Right, it would
then
seem like it's pure K. Elisha,
then
while
it
you're saying that like
seems
there
as
is
if-
like a very dominant kind of voice or story of the
Yeah.
Shashemi in this pair. Great, no, thank you both for sharing. And actually, we're going to see different opinions that also have the same debate, right? And I think that the text itself is a little bit ambiguous about who the main character is. And we're going to see, some will say that it's Isha Shunamit, some will say that it's Alicia. But I think the big question really is kind of like, what is a lesson that's supposed to be learned here, right? This is, again, is this almost like a story that's supposed to teach us of Alicia going on a journey, or is it the Isha Shunamit going on a journey? And what is the lesson they're supposed to learn? So as I said before, this was at the center of a lot of controversy, not like real controversy, but a heated debate with some different articles that took place in Megadim, this Tanakh publication. And it started with Rav Elchanan Samet, who's a very well-known Tanakh scholar, who wrote an article, and he basically made the following argument about who was the main character and what he thought the mistake was or the journey was. So I'll share his thought, and then we'll see if you find it compelling or not. And there were a couple of responses that were written that present different options. So we'll kind of present those. We'll have a chance to analyze them together as a group and see kind of what lessons we want to take from the story. So Rav Elchanan Samet starts off by saying that the Isha Shunamit is a parallel character here to Sarah, right? People shared before, right? And she is basically the classic type of an akara that we see. However, there's going to be one important difference here. So if you look actually the next page, I gave you a chart. Thanks, some charts. So the first chart over here just shows the parallel of the Isha Shunamit, right? Is this just another akara story? And we see a lot of kind of parallels between the story of Sarah and the story of the Isha Shunamit, right? In both of them, we have very similar words, right? Bigdal Hayelad, like the boy grows up. We have elderly prospective parents, right, in both of these. The idea of standing by a doorway, right? Sarah is standing by the doorway to hear kind of the malachim. And here too, we have that the Isha Shunamit stands in the doorway. In both of these, we have the theme of Haknasat Archim, right, of guests, which is very dominant with Abraham and Sarah, and also here with the Isha Shunamit. Both of them are promised a son at this time next year. Both of them also express a little bit of doubt, right? As we saw in the text, right? Whether it's, don't delude your maidservant, right? Al techazeh b'shivchatech, which Isha Shunamit says, or Sarah laughing, right? And almost like in disbelief, like how could it be that my husband and I are gonna have a child? We'll come back to the bolder one in a second, right? However, over here we have a few kind of differences, but one other kind of theme. In both of these, you have the child is placed in a dangerous situation and recovered, either kind of very clearly, right, in our story, the Isha Shunammit, and even if you want to kind of stretch it a little bit longer, with the story of Sarah, you could think about that with Yitzchak, right? That child that is born, the miraculous child that is born, is also later put in danger and then survives. However, what Rav Salmon kind of points out, well, also kind of one of the things that we know that Sarah is an akara, right? With the Isha Shunammit, it's left a little bit more ambiguous, right? The Gehazi is the one who volunteers the information, but she never kind of expressed anything about that. And the big difference that he points out, that Rav Salmon points out, is that with Sarah, you have kind of a feast that happens kind of after she finishes nursing Yitzchak, and there's no explicit kind of thanking of God, but he maintains that it's kind of implied, that we have like the Brit Milah, you have some kind of ceremony, but with the Isha Shunammit, there isn't really any thanking of God. There isn't kind of any thanking that goes on. She never kind of acknowledges this child she has been given. And he kind of uses this to make the following argument. He says that the text kind of wants us to see with the Isha Shunammit that she's living her life, right? And she's satisfied with her life, everything is going fine. And suddenly when she's given this opportunity to have this miracle child, really the response that she should have given is she should have kind of realized that a child that's given from God has to be treated differently than any other child. This is a child that's given as a miracle. It's shaking up kind of like her routine, right? It's giving her this new chance to have a child which she never had before. And it also required some sort of action, some sort of follow-up from the Isha Shunammit. There needs to be some sort of gratitude. There needs to be some sort of public or even private hoda'ah or acknowledgement of God, which is absent from the text, even though we do see it with Sarah. And he compares it to another akara, and that of Hannah. If you look in source number 2, what's interesting is we know that Hannah, who is pleading for a child and davening for a child and very much wants a child, and when she's given a child, what does she do with this new child that she has? She doesn't keep him at home. Right, she sends him away to yeshiva, right? She's like, you're gonna go work in the Beit HaMikdash, from like age of 3, right? Maybe a little older, but right after he's weaned, like he goes off to work in the not Beit HaMikdash, to work in the Mishkan. What's interesting here, though, where Salmon points out, is where does the Isha Shunammit's son go?
Field.
Field. He's gonna be a farmer. Like he's gonna go work and be a farmer. Which again, and we'll see what our responses are. But Salmon actually maintained, this is what started off kind of like the articles of response, was that this was an inappropriate choice by the Isha Shunammit for her. Once I always grab his point, that inappropriate choice. That how can a child that was promised by God be sent to be a farmer? You have to do something special. You have to acknowledge this gift. And she just kind of continues living her regular life without acknowledging this tremendous gift that was given by God, and without kind of altering her own life as well. It's something that he talks about how she was very, very satisfied with her religious life. We see she was going and visiting the Navi around Chagim on holidays, and her life was fun. But now kind of she didn't really appreciate the child that was promised to her. And he says that was kind of the conflict. And the journey is basically, if you don't appreciate something, this is where it gets controversial, right? If you don't appreciate something, what happens? It is then taken away. And then the journey the Isha Shunammit has to go on is we see how, right, we mentioned before how active she is, right? And we see how she went from being very passive, I don't want a child, my life is fine, to basically, totally, it sounds like, she's making sure she has a donkey loaded, we're going to go fast, we're not going to stop for anything. She won't talk to Gehazi, she falls to the feet of Elisha, she comes back with him, and she turns into this active mother fighting for her child. And that's basically the full circle according to Rav Sam. That's her journey. And the resolution is that the child comes back to life. And now, kind of like she and the child are reunited, but in a different level, where now she appreciates the kind of specialness of this child, and she's been learned, and she's come to appreciate it through his journey. So that was Rav Sam's points, and then there were lots of people who disagree with him. But I want to kind of turn it over to you. Thoughts? Do you find this compelling? Agree? Disagree? What do you think about this kind of take on the story of this being the Isha Shunammit's kind of her being the main character, and this being the journey, the sin, and kind of like the journey that she's on to resolve it? Any thoughts?
No. Well, I was going to say, while you were speaking, couldn't one also make a comparison with the story of Samson's?
Interesting.
The announcement that his parents would have a child, and their response. Of all those, what is it? Of the 3 stories, I guess the Shunammit is the one who stands out as being kind of lukewarm at the beginning, anyway. Yeah.
Right. So there are kind of like the text does seem to support this type of read, right? That like she does seem to kind of be not so active or not so at the beginning, kind of when she's
At the
promised this
beginning,
child. Okay, very, very nice. And other thoughts, people, does anyone wanna respond, agree or disagree with it? What might be problems, might be a way to kind of push back against this read of the story?
It's interesting that she was very close to this Ish Elohim, to the extent that she made him a special room.
Mhm.
But it never dawned on her if she was indeed pained by being an Akara to ask him to help her. So we never hear of that anyway.
Right.
And when she says, she's kind of like surprised that he would even be proactive in asking her what she wants. It doesn't seem to be her number one agenda.
Right, and that's kind of, I think, here also, it's and we'll see, like, that could be fine also, this is, she's made peace with her lot in life, and that's what, she's open to doing. Right, it's interesting here, that he's almost saying that that's kind of negative, or once she was given that child, she should have appreciated, instead of seeing it maybe as a burden, or seeing it as, I don't think we see it as a burden, but not kind of acknowledging the specialness of it. Yeah, no, definitely, yeah.
I don't really see where she learns the lesson and appreciates it. Doesn't, and she does at the end bow down for Talisha, but
Right.
She's just thanking him for what he did. But
Right.
I don't see where she's come up.
True, there doesn't seem to be like the thanking. I think where Sam is saying, the fact that she now becomes very active and she's like fighting for her child, like that's kind of her tshuva. That before that she was kind of like, right, I'm not sure if I'm totally, if I find this approach totally compelling either, but it's more that before she was very passive and now like she's not gonna let anything stop her and she's gonna fight for her son, and that fighting kind of shows that she appreciates it. Even though you're right, there isn't really this, we don't see a public, she's not sponsoring Kiddush, right? Like at the end, there's no kind of public hurrah, even though that moment might have passed. Like it might be too late for that now, but it's more showing it through the fighting. But interesting point also, right? That doesn't really, we don't see it there. So that was the first approach. That was where Samet kind of published, and it actually generated a lot of kind of heated responses. So I want to share kind of two of those response. A lot of this is kind of Alex Israel, who's also a big Tanakh scholar. He talks about a lot of these different approaches. So he kind of categorized them also, and like they're different, what's compelling and what's not compelling. So the other two responses that I wanted to bring up. So next one we're going to talk about is Mordechai Sabato. I think we quoted him last time also. He teaches in Israel. He teaches a little bit in Matan as well. So he has a different approach. He says, he disagrees totally. He says this story is not about the Isha Shunammite at all. This story is actually about Elisha. And it's trying to teach Elisha a very specific lesson. And what he says over here is that, as we said before, Elisha is the man of miracles. Elisha is the person who's always going around. There's a problem. He pulls out, it's like pulling out a credit card. He pulls out a miracle and he'll solve your problem with a miracle. And I think that comes from a very good place, right? Elisha sees himself as a dedicated leader, responsible to the people, wanting to help people out. But Rav Sabato says that sometimes, even when you want to do that from a good place, you can sometimes, with that amount of power, you can kind of lose sight of where it's coming from, right? Like, is the power of the miracles really coming from God? Or is Elisha kind of seeing himself now as almost, not as a God, but I think as someone who, look at this tremendous power he has to kind of hand out miracles, and not realizing this is something that has to be used in a very careful way, but almost Elisha is deciding, like, no, what's the problem? There's an issue. I'll solve it with a miracle. That's fine. And kind of him having to go on this journey to realize that miracles can't always solve all those problems. You have to realize that miracles are something that come from God, and they have to be used with a certain amount of humility. And it's almost a lesson here in hubris to Elisha, which she kind of shows in different ways, which I'll explain now, and then we'll have a chance to kind of unpack this a little bit more. So for example, the first thing, if we look back on the source sheet, source number 3, just to show kind of this idea of the miracles. Actually, maybe we'll just source number 4 first. That kind of gives us a little bit more of the context. Right? The Gemara in Ta'anit talks about how there's 3 keys that are kind of only left for God. Like all of us have power. People might have power to do lots of different things, but there's 3 kind of matzachot that are restricted and left in God's hands. There's 3 keys that only belong to God and they don't belong to anyone else. So interesting enough, right, these 3 things that are kind of off limits for, like, kind of not in the realm of men or women to control, right? Childbirth, resurrecting the dead, or resurrecting someone from the dead, or rain. Which, interesting enough, right, for the purpose of our story, right, showing that we almost have 2 out of 3, right? Because we have, right, not just the Tchiyat HaMeitim almost that's going on, which is also the Mefarshim kind of debated what exactly happened, but here this idea of promising a woman a child, that's not something that humans are allowed to do. Like, it's in the realm of humans, something that's left up to a Kadosh Baruch Hu. What's interesting also is a third one of Geshamim we don't see with Elisha, but it's very much connected to who? Right, to his Rebbe, right? To Eliyahu is very much connected also to promising rain or taking away rain, right? That's the whole beginning of that story. So again, but here, so they kind of go against this Gemara a little bit, but I think here we see a little bit of the conflict, right? Like this is something, at least with childbirth, it's not up to you, Alicia, to promise. But it's something, right, this is hubris, you're not allowed to cross that line. But it's a line that Alicia kind of crossed anyways. And I think that's where things get a little bit blurred. When we see, if we look at source number 3, we know it's Sarah, going back to the story of Sarah, when she's promised a child, right, it says, Pasuk Bet, right, in Bereshit Chaf Batahar, it's in source number 3, Batahar B'Teled Sarah L'Avraham Ben L'Zikunav L'Moed Asher Diberoto Elokim, right, she had a child the next time, at the time that God had promised. When we read, almost say the same Pasuk in Melachim Bet, right, it's written in a very different way, Batahar Isha B'Teled Ben L'Moed Hazeh K'eit Chaya Asher Diber Aleha Elisha, right, and I think that that's something here that a lot of different Tanakh scholars point out, that this is done very purposely by the the Nevi'im who are writing Sefer Melachim, that this is done very purposely to show, Elisha's almost, and again, I think it's coming from a good place, but like lines sometimes, even with the best intentions, lines get blurred, right? And here also, like Elisha's almost like, look at him, he's crossed, like he has access to this Mateach, right? And he's the one almost seeing that he's able to give that promise, that miracle. And I think when we go back to right, when again, we said almost how Isha Shemit doesn't ask for this, but even when she's offered, when he wants to help her, and Gehazi's like, oh, do you know that, she doesn't have children? What's Elisha's first thing? He pulls out of his pocket, great, a miracle. We'll solve it with a miracle, no problem. Without kind of thinking about kind of the consequences of that action. Yeah.
I'm flustered because Elisha is a Navi.
Yeah.
And he has a close relationship with Hashem, and he gives him the nevuah. Now he takes it upon himself to say, oh, you need a child, I'm going to give you the child. So what was Hashem's thought towards Elisha at this moment? He just wanted to show him, listen, you did this, now you're going to live with your consequences. But he didn't, because the child came to life again.
Right.
So I'm...
No, great. These are great questions. So I think kind of what we see is Elisha, that this is the sin, right? The question is that, or the mistake at least for Elisha was he was kind of blurring those lines. The part?
He didn't take it out on the woman that she should lose her son, but he showed Elisha.
Right. So this is actually the problem with this approach. But I think you're pointing out is that at the end of the day, right, to teach Elisha a lesson, who suffers? Right, the woman and the child. Right. So I think that's where it's like, well, maybe the story is about the Isha Shemit. And I agree. I think that's the whole in this approach, basically. And the way basically to kind of that, again, that Rav Sabato explains is basically that Elisha has to go on this whole journey, right? Even though you're right here, that the journey is affecting the child of the other woman, right? And the journey that Elisha goes through is he basically has to see the kind of consequences that his actions have had on someone else, right? That like, you can't just promise a miracle. Rav Sabato explains, this child was a child of miracles that shouldn't have existed in the first place, so that's why he kind of falls ill. Like, this wasn't a child who was supposed to kind of come to the world, that Elisha kind of forced maybe God's hand. What we see in kind of Elisha's journey, even though you're right, like I think that's a hole in the problem, what the hole in the story about this is really affecting the woman and the son, is if we look at source 6, or what are Elisha's actions, right? The first action he does, he's still not getting it. Like he sends Gehazi to do what? Put the staff on the child's face, right? Which is also trying to do like another miracle to kind of bring him back to life. And Rav Alex Israel points this out, if you look in source number 5, that the wording of Ein Kol Ve'Ein Kashev, there's no sound, and there's no kind of response when he puts the staff on the face of the child, is actually the same language that's used in the previous story of Eliyahu, of Elisha's Rebbe, of Eliyahu and Nivi'e Baal, and the priests of Baal, when they're having that whole showdown, right, in Har Carmel, right near Haifa, and like, which gods are going to answer, like, with the Korban, and the Nivi'e Baal are, like, jumping up and down all day, trying to get these gods to answer. It says, Ve'ein kol, ve'ein onev, ve'ein kshev, almost the same language. Almost showing here also that there's no real sound, right, there's no response, because this is almost like, it's not saying I think it's outright idolatry, but it's saying that, like, again, it's a fine line with miracles, right, where it goes. But finally, Elisha gets the point, and he realizes to go to the house in person, what does he have to do? What's the only thing that's going to bring the child back to life without a miracle?
Life into
right. Yeah, right. But even before that, there has to be tefillah, right? He has to pray to God. And like, once he realizes the source of the power and the source of where the miracles are coming from, then when he takes hishtadlut, right, when he takes initiative to do that whole medical procedure, then everything will work. And that's basically that second approach. It was hubris on the part of Elisha to kind of cross that line. Just to share a couple other points about this, if you turn the page over, Rav Alex Israel also points out something interesting. He says that sometimes this idea of hubris, could be the fault of Elisha, but sometimes it happens because of someone's entourage. as people kind of advance in power and people kind of move up the ranks, you have like an entourage kind of around you, right, that like decides who has access to the Navi and who doesn't. And kind of here's something that Gehazi, as the gatekeeper, was this like that Elisha, was Elisha's hand almost forced? So Gehazi is almost telling him, oh, she doesn't have a child, you can do this. Like, you're Elisha, you can do anything, right? And is that also kind of crossing the line? If you look at the Mechilta in source number 7, right, it says over here that people were like asking Gehazi when he goes off first, right, to try to save the child, Amar lo, lahechan tahalech Gehazi, where are you going? Amar lahem lachayot mate, I'm going to, revive someone from the dead. Amar lo, v'kiyatay yachol lachayot mate, can you really do that? Hello, Kadosh Baruch Hu may mitu mechayesh. Ne'emar Hashem may mitu mechayeh. That's only in God's realm. Amar lahem, af Rebbe may mitu mechayeh. Yeah, but my rabbi, my Rebbe, my master, he can do this. So again, we're seeing this blurring of lines. And again, does this come from Elisha, like from good intentions, but sometimes, hubris happens to anyone? Or is it almost the fact because of his entourage, because of Gehazi, when everyone's saying that you can do anything, right, is that also going to kind of blur the lines? However, Elisha does tshuva, right? We see that he's
Lunch is not in the NPR today.
That's gonna be a lot of
EJ's is selling in the front lobby. No one is allowed in the NPR. Thanks.
We have our Hanukkah Chagil later, so it's a little bit chaotic. As a change, but basically so we saw how Gehazi maybe is the one who's limiting the power, but Elisha basically learns a lesson. He realizes it's real tefillah, not miracles, that is really his role as a Navi, and that, you can use miracles, but it's real tefillah that's the important part. And just to kind of wrap up this approach, and then I'll share one final thing and we'll end with that, it's source number 8. The next story right after this is the story of Elisha and Naaman, right? Naaman is the general who comes, right, from across from a neighboring country, from over the Yarden, and he comes to be cured of Sarat. And it's an interesting it's a whole text that is fascinating to look at in itself. Rabbi Alex Stroh has a fascinating shir on it. If you're interested in looking at it, just to give you kind of one point from it that I think really jives a lot with what we're seeing. When Naaman is told, he goes to Elisha to get cured, right, to get cured of Sarat, and Elisha tells him, go dip in the Yarden, right, 7 times and you'll become cured. And Naaman gets really mad, and he says basically, and I bolded this right in Pasuk Yudalef in source 8, Vaytzuf Naaman, Vayelech Bayomer, Hinei Amarti Elai Yetzei Yatzo Be'amod V'krav Hashem Hashem Elokav, V'nifedu Al Makom Ve'asaf HaMetzorah. I didn't sign up for dipping in the Yarden. I came to Elisha for him to do a magic trick. Isn't that what Nevi'im do, right? He's going to say hocus pocus, do something to me, wave his hand, what will happen magically? I will be cured. I didn't come to actually have to do work. I'm not coming to actually dip in the Yarden. But he gets convinced by his assistants to go and do it, and he finally does it. And after he immerses, he says, "Vayomer hinena yadati ki ein Elokim b'kol haaretz ki im b'Yisrael." He really recognizes God. And one of the main things from that story is we see actually very limited contact between Elisha and Naaman, because Elisha, I think, is trying to downplay this attitude that really existed in neighboring countries and exists a little bit in Eretz Yisrael as well, of seeing the Navi as God, or seeing Nevuah, or almost how do I solve my problems? I offer a korban, but I don't really have to do tshuva, right? So how do I get cured of Sarat? I go to the Navi, I pay him off, he does something magical, and I'm able to be fixed. But Elisha's saying, no, if you really want to be cured of Sarat, you have to humble yourself, you have to go to the Yarden, where it's just you and God, no one else, and not me. And Elisha makes sure that he is not present at the moment when Naaman becomes what? When Naaman is cured. And I think that this is also, we're seeing with Elisha's character, that he's learned the lesson from the previous story, right? And he realizes that, miracles can happen, but it's very important that the public realize these miracles don't come from him, but they come really from Hashem. And I think we see that very clearly, and it's a success story, is what we see later on with Naaman. So to recap what we've seen so far, the first approach was that maybe the main character is Isha Shunammite. She didn't really appreciate the child. She had to go through the whole journey of losing him, fighting for him, and then she's done tshuva and she's come full circle. The second approach we saw is no, it's really about Elisha, and Elisha's hubris of kind of the lines getting blurred of who's really doing the miracles, and him not, thinking that he can just kind of hand out miracles whenever he wants, and realizing that no, miracles really come from God, and if he wants to solve problems, it's not putting the stick or the staff, it's really going to be true tefillah, and that's kind of Elisha's journey. To wrap up, I want to share one final approach by Rav Moshe Lukenstein. He basically says that this story is still about Elisha, but it's not about Elisha's hubris. It's about teaching Elisha empathy. And teaching Elisha how to have empathy for other people's feelings. And he goes back to the comparison of the Isha Shunammite with the other Akarot, with the other barren women. But he says it's not about the fact that she didn't say thank you, or she didn't host a kiddush or anything like that, or bring her son to serve in the Mishkan, or to work for Elisha. It's really about looking at the pain that she was in. And the pain that she was in, that parallels the pain of other Akarot. And if you look at source number 9, we want to parallel to the story of Hannah. We're told, we know what Hannah v'hi marat nefesh v'yisrael al Hashem b'chot zivcheh. We see how distraught Hannah is over not having a child. And we see this with the Isha Shunammite when she comes a little bit later on, right? When she's very bothered by it, uses the same language, right? When Elisha says to Gehazi, don't pull her off me, right? Ki nafsha marala, because she's really upset. We see her pain. And Moshe Lichtenstein goes back kind of to the original story that we'd seen earlier about the fact that she never asked for this. Right? This wasn't something that she had asked for. And Moshe Lichtenstein says you can't just, whether it's Gehazi or whether it's Elisha, you can't just promise a woman a child out of nowhere. If she didn't ask for this and she's not bringing it up, and you're just going to decide that this is what she needs, you don't know the backstory. You don't know anything about her, right? You don't know anything that's gone. Is this something she struggled with for a while? Is it something that she's made her peace with? You don't know anything about her, emotional background or connection to this, and you're just going to offer her a child. And then what does Elisha do? Then you're going to walk away. You're going to walk away, and you're going to kind of like allow that to kind of play out. So here, even though too the journey for Elisha is how it affects the woman, right? And he sees how losing the child kind of like affects the woman. The lesson here, according to Moshe Lichtenstein, is Elisha has to see the direct cause or the pain that he's caused to other people with his lack of empathy. And the main reason here also is that we see that the Isha Shunammite from the beginning of the story, she is only concerned with who? What's she doing at the beginning of the story? Elisha. She wants to help Elisha, not just help him set Archim, let's make him a house. She wants to kind of like preempt any needs that he would have. But Elisha isn't doing the same thing. He's not thinking about what her needs are. He's just like, no, this is what she wants. This is what she wants. It's fine. We're just going to do it. We're just going to promise her a child. Like, it's fine. No consequences. And not really thinking about and having true empathy as a leader is really thinking about what does this person really need? What do they want? Has he had a conversation with her about this, right? You can't just promise something without there being consequence, especially as we see her reaction when she's like, please don't deceive me. Like, if you're promising this, you really have to be serious. And the pain, when we see that when that child is lost, we see with Elisha, his journey, right, has to be like, look at kind of like what your lack of empathy did. Look at kind of how the pain you caused other people and their families. And his real tshuva, the real resolution, if we go back to that chart in source 6, it's not the fact that he had to go and daven, but it's the fact that at the end of the day, he actually has to go and he has to be the one to interact with the child. He can't send Gehazi. It has to be him. And Rav Moshe Lichtenstein says the message here is that Elisha should have never really just promised something huge like that and walked away from the family, right? It's something that if you're going to get involved this intricately into someone else's family, you have to continue that relationship. And it's only when Elisha is kind of alone in that room with that child, is the child kind of come back to life, right? And it's almost like instructing Elisha here or teaching Elisha this journey that you have to have empathy as a leader and realize the consequences your actions are going to have on other people. And again, part of the problem could be on Elisha, and part of it could be, as we said before, right, with Gehazi and the entourage, like who has access to the Navi and who doesn't. And sometimes I think an issue that sometimes happens with leaders when people get promoted, people move up the ranks, right, that like you kind of lose your connection to the regular people when you become, establishment, right? And here too, Elisha's kind of like forgotten that he's this big Navi, like kind of what happens to regular people, and that's kind of the message of the story. I remember hearing once from Menachem Leibtag was saying he came to Ma'anon, and he was speaking to a bunch of teachers, and I think one of the things he shared that I thought was very powerful was that people kind of move up and become administrators. He was saying it's always important to kind of teach one class, and it's important to kind of like, you don't lose sight when you're running a school, right, of kind of like the day-to-day issues of students, and you're only going to know that if you're really making sure to have that day-to-day interaction with students, which, thank God I think I know, like we really focus on doing. But again, really making sure as people move up that they don't kind of lose sight of that. And now it's basically Rav Moshe Lichtenstein's kind of point. And just to kind of wrap us up, now I'll take questions if people want to stay and ask questions. I think that's why I really love this story and this narrative. I think it's very rich and it has a lot of different perspectives, or whether we said it's the Isha Shunammite trying to appreciate, the child that was taken from her and learning to fight for her child, whether we find that compelling or not, whether it was Elisha and the hubris of sometimes as leaders, even well-intentioned leaders, of kind of crossing the line of what their power is and the power that comes from God, or whether finally here, the danger as leaders of sometimes losing your connection to the regular people and losing kind of that idea of empathy, which really, right, if you ask anyone who's involved in leadership, hopefully, right, they'll all tell you they went in for it to help people, right? And sometimes, though, as you move up the ranks, and there's establishment and bureaucracy, you kind of lose sight of that. And how do we kind of come back to ourselves, right, tying into what we saw kind of last week in our shiur, how do we come back to ourselves and be able to connect to the people? And that's, I cut off the end of the story, but we know Gehazi, sorry, this is actually the end of the next paragraph. Now Aman, Gehazi at the end doesn't always end up being so helpful to Elisha, right? And I think part of that also is when you have barriers between you and the people, right, that's gonna end up causing problems. It's very important as leaders just to have that connection, whether it's town hall meetings or things like that, to have those connections to the regular people. So a lot to think about, and a lot to kind of discuss, and I don't wanna hold people here, so I think we'll end officially now. If people have any questions, I'm happy to stay and discuss a little more. So have a great Hanukkah, and yeah, thanks for coming.
Thank you.